Well, it is Dan Kingerski here on the Pittsburgh Hockey Now and the National Hockey Now YouTube channel. We're going to try to dive into and dissect and explain what went on Monday. Penguins general manager, president of hockey operations, Kyle Dubas, has been a man of his word. There is a lot more going on if you look at the big picture. I think I'm going to try to connect those dots here tonight because, listen, he didn't lack for any activity on Monday. It wasn't the big, sexy names that Penguins fans may have been used to from past years, like even last summer when Dubas went and got Erik Karlsson, and that trade seemed to take all summer, keeping everybody's attention. No, Monday, Kyle Dubas stuck to the script. He executed exactly what he said he was going to do. Remember on Friday in Vegas, he said, no long-term, no expensive free agent deals. So what did he do? The Penguins signed 9 players, including Blake Lizotte, who still doesn't show up on the transaction sheets. If you want to take away Emil Bemstrom as a re-sign, even though it happened well after noon, you can do that regardless. The Penguins grabbed 4 NHL guys, okay? But everybody except Lizotte is on a 1-year deal. Sunday night, the Penguins let P.O. Joseph walk by not qualifying him as an RFA. He becomes an unrestricted free agent. They thank him and send him along his way. First thing Monday morning, or closer to noon anyway, I guess it was 1 o'clock before it happened, the Penguins signed Matt Grzelcyk, former Boston Bruins defenseman, 5'9", but good skater, good puck mover, had a terrible 23-24 season, just 11 points, 2 goals, 9 assists. I know a lot of Penguins fans were just throwing themselves off the bridges over that move. Relax, kids. Uh, I promise you, Grzelcyk is at least a competent defender, no worse than P.O. Joseph. He's at worst, it's a wash. It's probably an upgrade. That was the first NHL player. Again, though, it was on a 1-year deal. And hang with me here because I'm going to explain everything. I feel like those Ancient Aliens shows. Any second now, you're going to have a narrator come over top me. Penguins theorists suggest. The second one was Anthony Beauvillier, really struggling since he left the Islanders. He never really found his footing on Long Island, but last season just got kicked around the league, 3 different teams, Vancouver, Chicago, and Nashville. I don't think he had 20 points combined for all 3 teams. Here's a guy, he can play that simple north-south, chip it in, go get it, kind of, make some passes, shoot it sort of game. The problem with Anthony Beauvillier has always, my perception from a little bit afar, has always been that little bit of a confidence, a little bit of a chip that he needs to play the game, and he goes away for a very long time. He just absolutely disappears, and so the Penguins kind of pick him up on a bargain. Again, a 1-year bargain. They re-sign Ryan Shea. Perfect move. Good, solid 7th defenseman. Shea can play the right side, play the left side, as we saw last year. He really stepped into that Chad Ruhwedel sort of role. And put a pin in this, if Ryan Graves doesn't rebound, well, then you've got Ryan Shea to supplant him, and you can send Ryan Graves back to the press box with some level of confidence. Again, Shea only signed for 1 year. The only guy who got a second year was, in fact, Blake Lizotte. And let me see if I can if I can pull up the picture that I found of last season. Because I know everybody was a little bit upset with the size of the Penguins' free agents. Grzelcyk, 5'9". They signed Mac Hollowell, who's kind of a depth defenseman. He has to, he could make an NHL appearance. He's kind of an 8'9" defenseman, 5'9". Blake Lizotte, 5'7", $172. The thing with Lizotte, though, is he's just a little ball of energy. He really is in that Noel Acciari mold. And I had the picture of him body checking 6'6" Tyler Myers the Vancouver Canucks. It was quite the picture because he kind of got into his hips with his shoulder, lifted him off the ice. Lizotte is kind of one of those signings that it's going to be a game changer. There's the headline from Pittsburgh Hockey Now, and there's the picture of him battling behind the net. What makes this move so, I think, telling? Lizotte is a center. Kevin Hayes is a center. I haven't even unpacked the Kevin Hayes stuff. That's probably a good transition. You've now acquired Kevin Hayes and Blake Lizotte. Now, you're saying, Dan, Kevin Hayes can play wing, and you're right, except I asked Kyle Dubas on Monday what he projects Kevin Hayes as, and he unequivocally said, very quickly, center. So now the Penguins have all of these centers. Interesting, right? All of these centers on 1 or 2 year expiring deals. So first, let me unpack a little bit of what Kyle Dubas is doing. Understand, look at the common threads and kind of what he's saying. Although he's not screaming it at full throat, he is telling you that the Penguins are now in the business of selling cap space. Pursuant to the goal of acquiring as many draft picks as urgently as they possibly can, Dubas did that on Saturday. He didn't trade for Kevin Hayes. No, he traded for a second-round pick, and the cost was taking Kevin Hayes. On Monday, Dubas praised ownership for allowing him the budget to do that. He's going to do the same thing, I think, again and again, because they did it again Monday. Penguins trade Riley Smith, eat 25%, which is, $1.25 million, to get that second-round draft pick. It's in 2027, but it's just still a second-round draft pick, right? They get the fifth rounder for that 25% retention. Side note, the reason the Penguins didn't make the trade at the trade deadline was because they weren't getting that fifth rounder. Reading between the lines, that's kind of how I interpreted it. Dubas said at the trade deadline, eating salary is just kind of required. You don't get paid extra for it like you do in the summer. So that's what he's done. He's really maximized his assets in that trade. They spend a third rounder to get Riley Smith, and they get a 2 and a 5 in return. That's all pretty good, right? So the Penguins have about $4.3 million in salary cap space. That's according to Puckpedia. That's according to the soon-to-be departed Cap Friendly. The Penguins can now begin to sell that. Remember how Montreal was compensated last summer when they helped in the Erik Karlsson trade? By taking on Jeff Petrie for just a couple of weeks, by taking on Casey DeSmith for a few weeks, Montreal got draft picks out of the deal. It cost them a few million bucks, and they got paid. Dubas can now start to do that. And here's kind of an interesting dichotomy, right? Because now we get to unpack the Hayes thing a little bit more. We start to get into Pandora's box. Kevin Hayes playing center, Lizotte playing center. What does that do? Dubas said the first thing it does is it pushes Noel Acciari to the wing where he's more successful. I think we've talked about that a lot last year. Acciari is a better wing than he is a center. He can go be Tasmanian Devil again on the wing. But it makes Lars Eller entirely expendable. Now the Penguins can trade a guy like Lars Eller for a draft pick. Heck, they have several young players who are essentially still being blocked. Sam Poulin, Vasily Ponomarev, who could fit into the lineup, Jonathan Gruden. How many other veterans at the bottom of the lineup, the bottom six, can be traded for assets? Also, again, to clear some salary cap space. For every kid who places a multi-million veteran, you get what? Cap space. Which you can, repeat after me, kids, sell it. It's an entire paradigm shift for the Penguins. And this is 3D chess here because he's protecting the lineup as best he can with Beauvillier, with Grzelcyk, with Shea and Lazat. He probably could add a bit more scoring, but he can at least credibly say he's expecting Drew O'Connor to take another step forward. He's expecting Ricard Raquel to rebound, and Michael Bunting and Sidney Crosby, and so on and so forth. So there should be a decent enough core in place to ice a competitive team that, hey, just might make the playoffs. Although Dubas doesn't seem to care about that. He's looking 2 and 3 years down the line. Here's the second part of Pandora's box. Realize that of the 9 players they signed on Monday, and that includes re-signing Ryan Shea and Emil Bemstrom in the afternoon after they got to look around the market. Regardless, they signed 9 players, 8 of which to one-year deals. Only Lazat got a second year. So next summer, all of these contracts come off the books. Do you see where you kind of see where Kyle Dubas is going? With all of this, he is in effect signaling a massive rebuild on the way, and somehow keeping his team together while he does it. It's pretty slick, quite frank. Now, next summer, let's assume because Sidney Crosby and Kyle Dubas are talking, and Sid called all the draft picks, and he's called the new free agent signings today, and they seem to have a pretty good relationship, and Sid knows what's going on. Next summer, all hell breaks loose, and Dubas is gonna have a ton of money. He can sell it for more draft picks, but he can also sign guys to fill in for that next phase. But he has to get there first. Or maybe next summer he does a bunch of one-year deals again, kicks the can down the road just one more year while he recoups m more draft picks. Oh, by the way, I forgot to mention, all of these veterans on one-year deals, let's just say Beauvillier goes off this season and is really an effective winger, on pace for 20 goals, kind of the Anthony Mantha bounce, right? Now now Beauvillier has value. And if Dubas doesn't really care about squeaking into the playoffs, which he said now twice, he said it in response to my question Friday in Vegas at the draft, and he said it again on Monday to somebody else's question. I think Rob asked him like, "Okay, point blank, is this a rebuild?" And it's not really a rebuild. It's not really a retool. It's something entirely different. But he used that phrase again. Our goal is not to just sneak into the playoffs. We want to get back to being a contender. So, as the Capitals did and the Flyers did at the trade deadline. By the way, the Capitals got a lot better on Monday, didn't they? Well, they got Logan Thompson on Saturday at the draft, good goalie, probably a little better than Tristan Jarry. Then they get Jacob Chikrin on Monday. That team is a lot better than it was to end the season. Brian McClellan is doing a masterful job, far better than the last McClellan to lead a Washington, D.C. troop. Sorry, Civil War joke. And this is not a live chat. I just kind of put this on Twitter to have some fun. But wow, tons of you are showing up for this. Incredible. Maybe I will take some questions because I just planned on doing a little 10-minute video. Uh, so you see kind of what's going on. They'll be able to trade those veterans at the deadline. With any luck, a couple of the kids are ready to shove them aside. Also, a side note, another guy who signed who has a second year, Alex Nedeljkovic. What might that situation look like next summer? If Nedeljkovic has a really good season, Joel Blomqvist is ready, he pushes forward. The Penguins have given him breathing room. Maybe Maybe he doesn't need it anymore. Now what happens next summer? So this is really getting interesting. Dubas will be able to acquire a lot of draft picks, and who knows? Maybe they go look at the, free agent board, someone's price falls, maybe they get a Vladimir Tarasenko on a one-year deal. They can now afford it, really. How crazy is that? Oh, did my mic die? Oh, my mic's not working great. Crap! Let me turn it maybe that's a little better. My apologies, kids, your sound is terrible, blah, blah, blah. You know what? I'll prob Oh, there we go. Now we will talk soon.